Commission for the Village of Vernon Hills. We need to begin with a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cotton,
Here.
Commissioner Hesner,
Here.
Commissioner Heidner,
Here.
and Commissioner Mulcrone,
Here.
and Chairman Morris.
Here. All right, this evening we have two public hearings on our agenda. The first being case 2022-15, a petition filed on behalf of Chick-fil-A requesting approval of a certain variance to facilitate construction of a freestanding canopy on the property. The subject property is located at 701 Milwaukee Avenue, Unit 360, Zoning District B1, General Business, in the River Tree Shopping Center. Who is going to speak on behalf of the petitioner this evening? You want to come forward? Anybody else, or are you it?
Just me.
Okay, we ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
Yes.
With that, you are on, sir.
All right. My name is Jack Maney. I'm with GBC Design, representing Chick-fil-A. All right, perfect. So on the screen there is the subject property. It is the Chick-fil-A located on Milwaukee Avenue. The reason for the variance is to construct a canopy over the menu ordering stations. Is it? Can I control that? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So there's some pictures of the existing site as it sits today. On the left, you can see those are the two menu board ordering points with the smaller single, I don't even know if you would call them canopy, but kind of roof shelters there. And then also on the right is the single lane entrance to the drive-through that is today. They kind of got the cones there in the driveway in that picture. It looks like the operator was making some adjustments there. What we're looking at here is the demolition plan. The line work is kind of fuzzy on the screen there, but really the demolition is contained to the south side of the building there, just along the building and into that radius heading to the southwest corner. And then also towards the entrance of the drive-through up until those existing order points. So here is the proposed site of what we're looking to do. We'll start with the demolition to the south of the building. What that's showing is relaying their drive-through to their current drive-through standards. What we can't show on the site plan here is it's mostly just grade changes. What they do is they're putting a Tormax door where the drive-through pickup window is today. And what that is it's like a sliding man door more or less. So instead of being stuck to handing meals through the window, they can actually walk in and out of the store and walk them back to the vehicles that are waiting for their food. Also, they are going to install a freestanding canopy over that door to protect the team members that are walking out and handing and delivering the food to the customers waiting, just to more or less protect them from the elements. They're equipped with fans for warmer weather, heaters for colder weather, and the operators have a set schedule for keeping those team members only out there for certain time durations for their protection and safety, more or less. Moving to the northern side where you see the work at the entrance of the drive-through. So basically what they want to do is take that single lane entrance and expand it and get as much of a dual lane drive-through fulfillment that they can with this site, given the current restraints with the building location and patio. So we can get it at the entrance there. It's dual entrance on the way in, all the way up until the order points, and then it kind of throttles down after the order is taken. The reason being the canopy over the order points, team members are going to be out there with their iPads taking orders, basically trying to get those into the kitchen as quick as possible to allow them more time to prepare the food. And essentially, the order point locations are a set distance from the drive-through pickup there, that with the modifications to the site and the internal modifications, it makes for a smoother process that allows them to get the food prepared. So when you're pulling up to the new Tormax stores, it should be ready and handed as you're kind of making your way through. The reason for the canopy out there is just to protect the employees that are taking the orders, and the dual lane is just to avoid as much congestion as possible getting up to that point where you can place your order. think I'm missing anything as far as the site modifications go there. This is just our grading plan. I threw it in there in case there's any questions that come up. We did reach out to the third-party consultant at Christopher Burke ahead of time just to confirm that stormwater is not going to be an issue. We found the code section in the Lake County requirements that did not bump us into any type of detention or anything like that. So we've kind of confirmed that ahead of time that we're going to reuse the existing storm sewer and the existing drainage patterns that the site experiences today. Here's our landscape plan of what we're proposing with the modifications. Some we'll have to remove some existing. The goal was to put it back in and then some. You can see the new shrubbery being proposed along the property line. Here are the architectural elevations that will that show the canopies, how they kind of line up against the building. They're purposely designed to be sleek, dark in color, match the building accents. Chick-fil-A has spent a lot of money and a lot of time in this design and going through and more or less, this is the same canopy that's getting installed across the country with all their stores that they're going through and doing these improvements with. It blends into the site. It kind of gets lost. It's not a focal point, and I think that's what they were going after with the design. And then here's the other view of that. And then here are some real life pictures of what these look like, and you can see they don't stand out. Chick-fil-A didn't want them to be a focal point. They just kind of blend in with the building. The dark bronze helps with that. So I'll back up. This is the one that's going over the Tormax stores. This picture is shows the window, but you can imagine that if the Tormax stores goes all the way to the ground level there, and employees can walk in and out. So that's the one going over the drive-through pickup area, and here is the one that was going to go over the menu board area. It's a little larger, allows for team members to be protected in both lanes while they're taking orders. You can see in the center picture on the top, and then also the top right, there's the fans that are equipped in there. I think there's 6 in a structure this size, and then also the heaters are kind of blended in there, and I don't know if this location got one. This might be a warmer weather climate picture, but those are the real life photos of what they're intending to do with this. I think that was it.
Any questions?
What is the clearance for the canopy?
9 feet. And that's just typical. If it we have done areas where it's needed to be raised, and that's not an issue. It's just a additional design constraint that'll be put in effect if it needs to be higher than that.
Anybody else?
So on the food pickup area, you're actually lowering the grade? Is that what you said?
No, we'll actually be bringing it up. So when we originally designed these with the window, the drive-through was designed to be 2 inches lower than the building finished floor. So now that they put these Tormax doors where you're walking in and out, we're actually bringing it up that 2 inches to meet the finished floor grade and kind of ramp away.
And that employee is coming out if the car at the window is not ready, but the car behind it is.
Correct. Yeah, the theory was that if car at the window ordered I guess 4 different sandwiches for their meal, and car behind the one sitting at the window is just a single sandwich, then when you fulfill the 4 sandwich order, not only 1 car is leaving, but 2 or potentially 3 if they're fulfilling the I guess smaller meals behind.
But you can't get around them.
No.
Not in this configuration. They are taking that into account with their new stores. When this was built, it was up to the current standards, and I think COVID and the pandemic, they've really seen an uptick in their drive-through. They're going through and is doing as much as they can with the existing stores and trying to make them as functional as possible to the new standards. In this situation, I don't think we have the option to do the dual lane all the way around.
And on the canopy over the order stations?
Yes.
go
Sorry,
back
I'm on-
where you were.
Yeah.
Is there lighting on that?
Yes, there will be lighting. We will take that into account with the photometric plan, make sure we're not spilling over property lines or anything like that, but they are equipped with LED lighting.
Is it recessed or is it not?
It's recessed up in the canopy, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody else?
And where are they exactly taking the orders? Looks like they're taking the order before the order board.
So, I guess I should have mentioned this and I apologize. During peak hours, we'll have the team members out there taking orders. It could be at the menu board. They'll work their way back as they go, as the drive-throughs kind of moving their way through. Essentially, they're just going to keep going in order and kind of roll as the traffic rolls through and the orders are fulfilled. Most of their order taking, if not all of it, is going to be under that canopy with the proposed modifications. The location of that canopy is kind of timed up for serving the customers out of the kitchen. During non-peak hour times, you will just drive through and use the menu board speaker as you normally do today.
So in order for that to work, they have to know what they're ordering on your menu
Yes.
before they get.
Yes, and I think the team members do have quick menus to hand to people in the car. They're equipped with the credit card payment devices, so they can take the card right then and there at the order. They also have a cash station booth that they put out there if people prefer to pay with cash or need a receipt, they can get that printed out for them. And once you get to the drive-through window, there's no exchange of money, and it's just, it kind of cleans up the process, and they're just focused on delivering the food rather than taking payment and then getting the right order out.
And are you relocating some of your existing lighting to do this?
Yeah, I believe so. I think there was a couple that needed to be relocated. Yes, there are 2 lot lights that are getting relocated to the outside curb. I think they're placed now on the outside curb, and since we're kind of stretching that out a bit, they're just getting moved with the curb line in the same general area.
And that's still on your property?
Yes, still on the property, and we will get that, take that into account with the site photometrics as well as the canopy lighting for those relocations.
Anybody else?
What is a magnetic delineator?
Okay, so a magnetic delineator, they put those out there for the team member safety. Basically, they will install a magnetic metal base in the concrete, and they are temporary magnetic delineators. I wish I had a picture. I'm sorry, I wasn't prepared for that. It's a skinny reflective delineator that they can place on the magnetic base for high peak hours and things like that, that can be removed for things like snow removal and maintenance like that.
So is it to keep the vehicles in their lane?
Correct, yes. It's kind of, it helps diverge the traffic to the drive-through and then also keep them in their lane as you're entering the drive-through, so there's no kind of back and forth and causing any commotion there and creating any danger for the team members out there kind of directing traffic and taking orders.
So is it a physical barrier that you can see, or is it a virtual barrier that is like a beam of light?
It's physical, you can see it, and yeah, I think it stands about 3 feet tall. There is a detail that I have here. It will not be in color, unfortunately. I can point that out. It helps. I don't know if this will. Is this a curve? Right here is what,
Right.
so they're not in color, but
Oh, I
you see
see
the
it,
circular
I
base.
see it. Okay, so it's a fastener. The
Yes.
magnetic component of that is the fastener.
Correct, yes.
Got it.
Yep. So
Okay.
they're easily removed for maintenance and,
So I was glad to see that you changed that drive aisle adjacent to the stacking area to one-way. You know, that was critical.
oh, yeah, no, I agree. Putting that up here now. Yeah,
And
that was a good comment and suggestion.
it makes those first 3 to 4 parking spaces a little precarious, but they're less precarious now because of that.
Nope, I completely agree.
And so you're replacing all the concrete at the drive-up window as it comes around the corner?
Correct,
New-
yes.
New curbs?
Yes, new curbs, new concrete, new everything.
Interesting, is that currently failing, or?
No, it's, with the new design, there is because of the Tormax doors, we're raising that up that 2 inches, as I mentioned, and their new design standard actually has a 38-foot kind of landing spot that is essentially flat against the building. So what you see there is the limits that we need to take to grade out to meet back to existing and bring that drive-through up to their current
1 to
standards.
50, 1 to 48?
Yes, yeah, it's all, it's flat from the window, and then there's a half a foot over 15 feet to expose that curb again. And basically, it's 19 feet flat from the door left and right, and that's supposed to be for the team members
So
as they're
you're
walking
at-
in and out, so it's all the same level, no grades.
You're at a quarter of an inch or a half of an inch from the inside of the building so that they're exiting and they're not stepping down a curb?
Correct, yep, it's all flat for where they should be walking and delivering food to avoid any tripping or incidents of that nature. And also there is a section of striping along the building, and I know it's kind of hard to see. That is there for the team member safety as well, and that's kind of their lane to maneuver in, and obviously, it's striped
So
out
you
for.
also widen that a little
Yes, yep, that's part of their new drive-through standards as well,
safer?
yes.
Could you go back to your picture of the existing site?
Yes.
No, I guess not the site, the building.
Oh,
The pictures.
Oh, you know what? That's at the beginning, I'm going backwards, I'm sorry.
Yes, okay. So here at the entrance to the drive-through,
Yes.
there's that red bar going up and across?
Yes.
Yes? Are you having that on the new?
We will have that, so if we look at, and I know it might be hard to see, at C, right at the entrance where the drive-through, I can't, okay, you guys can all see that, thank you. Right here is where that's going, and it is centered in that striped area, and it's a double bar, one going each way,
And
to
that's
cover
at
both
the
lanes.
9-foot level? Or?
Correct, yes.
Anything else? I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
The menu board lighted,
Yes.
does it face Milwaukee or face the building?
It faces Milwaukee.
So what is the view from Milwaukee of the menu boards? Or, I can't really tell where they are exactly on this compared to your landscaping. Are they going to be, if they're lighted, essentially blocked from Milwaukee?
Yeah, so I believe that's what this intent is, and this is existing to remain, and your menu boards are right here.
Okay. And then secondly, your parking is being reduced from 57 to 46 spaces. Putting aside what the code says, is that sufficient for the parking load that this specific unit sees?
Yes, we believe that the shift for Chick-fil-A, they are seeing so much more capacity issues in their drive-through than they are in their parking. It's become a problem. The current code for the PUD in this area, we are meeting it right at the 46. And if you talk to these operators, they're not having issues with congestion in the parking lot and not having parking spaces. All the issue is right at that drive-through, getting people through there, the queuing in the drive-through, trying to get them as much
Okay.
queuing as possible. We have not heard the latter of that from any of these operators that we've been doing these investments in.
Not that I would strongly suggest parking across that ring road if you had to, but is there either a cross-parking easement or a right to park across that road?
I looked into it. I don't believe there's any legal document put in place for that at the moment. I do know that, Andrew, I think you spoke with the operator, actually right before this, and that's where their employees are parking. It has not been an issue, from what the operator is saying.
Yeah, I did speak with the owner of this particular store. The employees park across the common drive aisle. They do not believe there's any formal agreement for that, but that is how their employees have parked there since day one. So, and they did confirm that their primary issue is really the drive-through. They need to be able to accommodate people as shown on the plan.
Okay. Are we satisfied from a staff perspective that the menu boards are lighted screen from Milwaukee?
Yes, but the grade change in particular here, it's several feet below the grade from Milwaukee, and there's landscaping. Visiting the site, I reviewed it. I took those photographs, actually, so that is not a concern. Just while we're on it, I did speak to the petitioner about the parking requirement. There was some question, and based on the staff report, there's an error in the staff report that referred to the zoning code requirement for the parking ratio as opposed to the parking ratio in the PUD. So the parking does work out per the PUD requirement. And then the other note the petitioner had mentioned, the stormwater we did receive confirmation from Christopher Burke that the trigger for additional stormwater detention would not be met. So they are fine, as was stated.
And that's sufficient, you don't need anything
Yes.
from the county?
That's correct.
Okay, anybody else?
Can you, working on your site plan there,
Yep.
or actually, you can work on the landscape plan if you want. Could you show where your variances that you're requesting are?
Yeah, so here is the front 60-foot building setback, and the variance is triggered because of the canopy being located here. The reason being, we're requesting it, the order points are there, they're existing. The whole purpose of this canopy is to cover those order points. If we were to place it somewhere back here, there is a set distance from the window to the order points, which essentially, wherever that canopy is where the team members are gonna be taking orders. You lose all your drive-through queuing if you put it past the setback line right at the entrance. If you're taking orders here, you're kind of missing out all this space for the queuing. And then also, the timing is pretty calculated as far as when the order gets to the kitchen and that cycle. So that's why we're requesting the variance.
Is that the only one?
I believe so. I don't believe there are any building setbacks, only utility easements on these side properties here.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? Okay, this is a public hearing with respect to a request for a zoning variation as just described. So at this point, if anyone from the public wants to speak with respect to this, this would be the opportunity to do so. Okay, seeing no run for the podium, we can close the public comment portion of that. Anything you want to add at this juncture?
No, I think I'm okay. Thank
Right.
you all very much.
What we have on this commission is a standing motion to recommend approval. It can be voted either up or down. Here, the motion would be to recommend approval with respect to the request for the variations from the zoning code as described in the application, subject to the Section 13.6 yard regulations to allow the canopy structure with a front yard setback of 28 feet as opposed to the ordinance PUD of 60 feet, and a Section 13.6 yard regulation in the district to allow the canopy structure within a side yard setback of 12 feet as opposed to 35 feet, subject to the site plan landscaping and appearance approval that we have seen, as well as the statement of hardship and unique circumstances provided by GBC Design, Inc. on behalf of the petitioner. It is subject to the condition of approval that grading and landscaping shall be subject to the final review and approval of the village engineer. Unless there's anything else, we need a second for that, please.
Second.
Any
Do we
dis-
want to do anything with the photometrics as far as having the final approval on that as well?
need subject to? You seconded it, Jerry. Could we add a second condition that would be subject to staff review and approval of the photometrics consistent with, okay. Okay, then any comments or discussion? Okay, if not, we need a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cotton?
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner?
Yes.
Commissioner Heidner?
Yes?
Commissioner Mulcrone?
Yes.
And Chairman Morris?
Yes. All right, so this proceeds how?
This will proceed to committee of the whole discussion. We have it tentatively scheduled for January 3rd, subject to availability of the petitioner. There are no updates to the drawings based on the discussion tonight that would be anticipated. So if you could just confirm with us that someone's available to represent it at the committee of the whole on January 3rd, we'll work with the manager's office to set that date.
Okay, and just email you about that, Andrew?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thank you, good luck.
Thank you all very much. That's
Okay.
it for this evening? then?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Luck.
you. I appreciate all your time.
Enjoy the weather. All right, next we have a public hearing, which was continued from November 30th, 2022, which is case 2022-13, a petition filed requesting approval of a special use permit to allow for a children's recreation facility and amusement, recreation, or training facility for adults known as Urban Air at 413 North Milwaukee Avenue, Suite 200, Vernon Hills. It is this B1 zoning district located within the Marketplace Shopping Center. Before you come up, let me note to everyone that's involved in this specific public hearing, this is a continuation of the public hearing. The commission has reviewed the initial materials as well as the supplemental materials and the minutes, including the record from the last hearing. So therefore, there is no need, nor will we allow you to repeat what has happened before. It is limited to the open issues from that meeting, so we're not starting over. In addition, it is limited to the special use permit that is being requested. If there are questions for exhibits of foundation, unless there is not a stipulation to agree to it, no foundation testimony will be allowed. It'll be simply stipulated in, so as not to waste time. And finally, at the conclusion of the petitioner's case, any objector can also present a case. We will then give each petitioner and objector 10 minutes rebuttal or closing arguments, and the petitioner can, if they choose to, can seek to reserve part of their closing argument time for rebuttal. Any questions, anybody? If not, you're on.
Okay. I'm Neil Hoffner. I guess since last time we were here on the initial hearing.
Okay, I have to apologize for this. Okay. Those of you that were sworn in at the last hearing remain sworn in, but just in the abundance of caution, if anyone is going to give testimony tonight, we ask that you raise your right hand and stand, and then swear or affirm that this testimony you're out to give before this continued public hearing before the Village of Vernon Hills Commission, Planning and Zoning Commission shall be the truth. Yes, sir. Okay, so everyone's been sworn in. Okay, sorry, that's my fault.
Okay. Since the initial hearing that we had on November 30th, I provided additional information for the proposed signage for the building frontage and also an example of the plaza monument. I provided parking lot site plans, submitted Marketplace at Vernon Hills details for the non-exclusive easement and required parking stalls among shared building tenants, as well as a tenant reciprocal easement and operating agreement. I've also provided some insight to the inspections and frequency that Urban Air has regarding the attractions, and had a response to the distinct attractions that Urban Air will provide for this location versus what Sky Zone has, as well as discussed details about Urban Air security.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything on behalf of the petitioner? You want to identify who you are and then let us know?
My name is Dean Ciampos. I'm the property manager. I just wanted to make a correction to my statement at the prior meeting. I indicated that we did not have approval from the parcel owners, and my mistake, that we do have approval from all the parcel owners.
Has that been provided to the village?
It has not.
But it can be?
It can be.
Okay. Okay. Anything else, anyone? Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So that approval from the other operators is for the different use that's being proposed?
Yes, so the requirement from each parcel owner is for the use that was initially restricted in the agreement. So we reached out for a waiver to this use.
Okay. Anybody else?
That's all I have.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Morris. My name is Stephen Palazola. I'm the Chief Legal Officer for Unleashed Brands, which is the parent company for Urban Air. And so I came up here today to just provide some basic testimony that this particular location does satisfy all the requirements that we have at Urban Air, whether it's square footage, parking, use, what have you. It does satisfy our basic requirements. I did note in the 3-hour hearing that was back in November that there was some questions about that, and I did want to take the opportunity to let everyone know that this does satisfy all of the requirements that we have implemented for all of the 158 units we have currently operating around the country. So we are here in support of this location and certainly would ask for your support of this as well.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for the petitioner? Okay. Okay. Does the objector have any cross-examination or questioning for the objector with respect to the testimony this evening, not last week? All right. Okay, there's an objector here. Okay, do you want to speak on behalf of the objector, please? You have to identify yourself first.
My name's Lenny Asaro. My name's Lenny Asaro, spelled L-E-N-N-Y. Last name is A-S-A-R-O. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Faegre Drinker on Biddle and Reith, and I'm here on behalf of one of the objectors, Sky Zone. The last meeting was, I believe, November 30th, so a couple weeks ago. Based on what was presented today, we do not have any additional follow-up questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions by anybody on the commission at this point? Okay, if not, as I've said, you have an opportunity as the petitioner, Urban Air, to make a closing statement in support of the request that you're making to the commission regarding the special use. As I've said, you have 10 minutes for that. If you want to, you can reserve part of it for rebuttal after the objector has the opportunity to. That's at your choice. So does anyone want to make a closing statement? Do you want to talk for a second and we can? Nothing. Okay, so you're waiving a closing statement.
He was going to reserve some time for rebuttal.
What do you want to reserve? All 10 minutes?
Up to 10 minutes.
Up to 10 minutes. Okay. Does the objector want to make a closing statement with respect to the objection?
Yes.
Okay. You are on, Mr. Asaro.
Thank you very much. I'll keep this very short, as will be welcome by the commission. There's a record of the testimony and the answers to questions at the last hearing. It is patently clear that this particular application does not satisfy all of the standards that are required for this proposed approval. And we would stand on the record that was presented at that last hearing, which is what this Plan Commission must do in order to make findings of fact. So there are no facts on at least 2 of the standards. So based on that, there really isn't any basis to recommend approval of this particular application. And there's been no additional evidence presented on rebuttal, which is what this particular body gave the applicant the opportunity to do. So strictly on a legal and factual basis, there is no basis to recommend approval based on the standards. And I thank you for your time.
Okay, before you leave, so we can focus properly, which of the 18.3 standards are you referring to as not being met? The 2.
I was trying to keep it short because you had
That's fine.
asked
That's fine,
us
but
not
just-
to go back over
Right.
particular
Tell us
points.
Which ones?
So I'm happy to do that.
Okay. So just tell us which ones.
Section 18.3.2, standard requires that the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the adjacent neighborhood. There was no evidence or testimony, documentary, oral, or otherwise, presented with respect to whether or not the proposed use would impact values within the adjacent neighborhood. Just as a reminder, the property manager did testify on cross-examination. The property manager was asked if he was a registered real estate broker. He answered yes. He was asked if he developed any opinions with respect to this particular element. He said he did not. There were no appraisal reports. There was no studies that were submitted on that particular element regarding that particular section. With respect to section 18.3.6, the standard is that the special use shall in all other respects conform to applicable regulations of this zoning ordinance. One of the applicable regulations was the parking requirement. The evidence that was presented regarding the parking requirement was that it was not based on the parking requirement as expressed in the zoning ordinance with regard to this particular zoning district. Rather, the parking requirement was determined based on something not in the zoning ordinance. Additionally, there was no evidence presented as to what the minimum parking requirement is, and there was no evidence presented as to whether or not this proposed use conforms to the parking requirement. The other major regulation for this particular zoning district has to do with the maximum square footage for non-retail. There has not been any application or approval that would allow for this particular use, given the amount of non-retail use, to conform with the zoning ordinance without receiving that conversion, I believe, exemption or permit. But that has not been applied for. Therefore, it's impossible to make a recommendation that this particular proposed special use conforms to that particular regulation within this zoning district.
Okay.
Just want to make sure I got them all for you.
Well, you said there were two. That's two. Is there anything else?
Well, that's true, but I think you would agree with regard to 18.3.6. It says conform to all zoning regulations for the district. There are multiple ones within the district, so I want to make sure I didn't overlook
Okay,
one.
fair enough.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you for the question.
thank you
Thank you for
very
the time.
Okay. Uh, The petitioner reserves some time. Are you prepared to speak now, or do you need a couple minutes to put your thoughts together? Why don't we do this? It's 10 after 8. We will recess for 5 minutes till 8:15, and then we'll come back, okay? Rather than, we enjoy watching you whisper, but we'll let you whisper without us watching you, okay? So we're going to be adjourned for 5 minutes, okay? It is the petitioner's option to give a rebuttal statement, and at this point, since you reserve time, it's not to exceed 10 minutes. And as we said, you do not need to rehash what occurred last week. So you are on, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Morris. I'll be very quick. There's 3 points I heard as identified by the objector's attorney. The first one was that there was no evidence presented that this particular use would not be injurious to the neighboring properties. I would articulate to you guys that there's no evidence to the contrary that it would be. There was no evidence offered that our use would cause injury to the neighboring properties. In fact, I would suggest to you that a vacant building causes more harm to the community than an occupied building with employees, customers, security, et cetera. So on point number 1, there is no evidence before this commission that our use would be injurious. In fact, we operate 160 of these around the country, and I would argue quite to the contrary. Secondly, there was a suggestion that there was no evidence in front of this commission that the required parking has been satisfied. And I would suggest that you guys look back to the staff report. As I recall from the hearing, Mr. Andrew suggested that there was 804 spots required for this particular use, and the current parking, available parking had somewhere between 840 and 860 available spots. I may be off a few on those numbers, but I think I'm close. I would suggest that there is ample evidence from the staff suggesting that there is sufficient parking for this use. And last, as it relates to the 20% parking on retail, I believe that there has been a non-conformance certificate filed by the petitioner just this past Friday, requesting that be reviewed by the city as well. So I believe the 3 points that have been identified by the objector have been resolved to the point where we can move forward with this petition and hopefully with a favorable result. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a question.
Yes?
I didn't say anything about injurious to properties. I specifically focused on property, the impairment of property values portion of it. I just want that to be clear for the record. So if there was a rebuttal on that point, then it'd be good to hear it.
Yep. Okay. At this point, the testimony and the closing statements with respect to this public hearing request for a special use permit is concluded. What we can do now is we can move to the commission deliberation of it, as well as the staff in terms of any additional input that they can answer in terms of questions. So does anybody on the commission have any determinations or things they want to discuss at this point? If not, we can turn specifically to the standards and the findings that would need to be made if we were going to move forward.
I would just like to clarify, I think I heard from the petitioner, one of the petitioner's parties, last time we met, that they actually heard from Joanne's that this development would improve upon their business. Was that not said?
Well, we really can't rely upon the petitioner. If it's part of the record, it's part of the record, but Commissioner Cotton?
I would recall hearing that as well.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Okay. If not, this is a special request for a special use. We need to recall that a special use is authorized if the Planning and Zoning Commission makes findings of fact supporting a recommendation of the village board in 6 areas. The first is 18.3.1 is the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the special use will not be detrimental or endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. Although that is not at issue and seems to be conceded by both the parties here today, we need to still discuss whether we believe that that condition has been met on this. So any thoughts with respect to 18.3.1? Okay. Can we find that the establishment of a special use here of, what does it refer to? Let me get it right. For a children's recreational facility and an amusement, recreation, or training facility for adults is not detrimental to public health, safety, morals, or general welfare based upon the testimony that has been provided and evidenced to this commission. Any discussion with respect to that? Okay. 18.3.2, which is in contest, we're going to skip over for a moment and go to 18.3.3, is that the establishment will not impede normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding properties for uses permitted in the zoning district. I think we've heard at this point from the owner that they are supportive of the center for the development in this regard. And in reviewing the record, I have not seen anything that would suggest that there would be any impairment of the development in this area. Subject to, of course, as the objector indicated, that there would need to be, let me get the actual wording right, a building conversion certificate. So whatever we would do would need to be subject to that, because until that occurs, we can't go forward. So we have to remember that that would need to, or if we move forward, to be an additional condition. So any other comments on 18.3.3?
And that refers to the square footage adjustment for allowing the use?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Is that right, Andrew?
That's correct, and that is something that is not within the purview of the Plan Commission. It is a board decision.
Okay. Fair enough. 18.3.4 indicates that the special use, there would be adequate service facilities, access roads, drainage, and unnecessary facilities in existence or being provided. As we know, the marketplace is an underutilized, for lack of a better way to put it, large parking field, as well as underutilized in terms of the occupancy in the stores. And our understanding is from the village is that there's no requirement based upon what we have learned of additional utilities, access roads, drainage, or other facilities to be installed. So it would meet it.
It would meet it, just subject to the staff report from the original hearing, noting that there may need to be grease basin if the county would require it.
Okay. So it'd be subject to,
Just a permit review by the county with respect to the use.
okay. 18.3.5, I'm sorry, does anyone else have anything on 18.3.4? 18.3.5 is adequate measures have been or will be taken to provide ingress and egress designed to minimize traffic congestion in the public streets. This was platted and put together as a PUD, geez, long ago. And the considerations for the full use of the center were at that point. As a matter of fact, it was a Kmart then, which even had larger usage. So my understanding is, and staff can comment on this, is that we have adequate ingress egress designed to minimize traffic congestion. There's signalized intersections with dedicated turn lanes in and out of the center at various locations, as well as connection with River Tree. I always get them confused. Not, right, River Tree, right?
I would concur.
Okay. Any other comments on 18.3.5? Okay. Which means then we have to move on to the two that were not conceded, and we've already made findings on, 18.3.2, which is the special use will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity for the purposes permitted, nor substantially diminish and impair property values within the adjacent neighborhoods. So there's two aspects to this. First, would not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property. That, I think, is, as the objector indicated, what the petitioner responded to. The objector's primary, if I can use that word, objection here of not meeting it is that it has not been demonstrated that it would not substantially diminish or impair property value. Okay, so any comments with respect to that by anybody? Scott? Oh, I'm sorry, Jeff?
We have a
Russell?
KFC across from a Chick-fil-A, and we have a Menards next to a Lowe's.
Okay.
Same comment.
The finding we would need to make is really two findings. One, would it be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property? And I think we have heard testimony even this evening again, supportive of other property owners, i.e. the owner of the center. And I think Commissioner Heidner also said that we have testimony which we did from Joanne's, or at least what Joanne
It was
said.
presented by the petitioner.
Right. So it seems that we can make a finding that it is not injurious to use and enjoyment of other properties. The larger question is whether it would substantially diminish and impair property values in the adjacent neighborhood. And I guess there's two questions there. One, would it diminish? And if it would it substantially diminish? It's just not any diminishment. So any comments with respect to that?
Well, we've heard the petitioner or representation for the petitioner identify a space that is vacant, currently vacant, and putting a use within that space certainly enhances the value and surrounding properties. So I would say that it certainly will not diminish the value.
Anybody else? Okay. From the village and the board's legal position, is there a requirement in either the municipal code or the state municipal code, I should have said ordinance municipal code, that we need to make a finding under 18.3.2, have appraisals or other land valuations?
No, if they're included in the evidence, they can be considered, but they're not required.
Okay. Okay. So the question is, does the commission believe that there would be a substantial diminishment or impairment of property values in the adjacent neighborhood, which we can assume here would include the adjacent use at Sky Zone, because it's, quote unquote, the next shopping center as part of River Tree, I believe. Anybody? Okay, and then lastly, the special use shall in all the respects conform to applicable regulations of the ordinance. In our section 18.3 standards, this ordinance is not capitalized or therefore defined to be the zoning ordinance alone. So I'd ask also for guidance from the village's legal counsel and the board's legal counsel. Does that ordinance refer just to the code of ordinance, or is also the PUD ordinance that was passed that governs this property?
It would be both, you're correct.
Okay. And from a staff perspective, does this otherwise meet the applicable regulations of the PUD ordinance then?
Yes, it was my analysis that it would meet the requirements of the PUD.
Okay. Any other questions or comments here in terms of findings we need to make? Okay. Any other discussion by the commission? Okay. If not, what we would do is, based upon the findings that we've just discussed, recommend approval of a special use for children's recreation facility, amusement, recreation, or training facility for adults for the property located at 413 North Milwaukee Avenue, Unit 200, Vernon Hills, as required by Section 13.3, Article 18, Special Use Standards, and Section 21.6, as described in the application by what I'm going to just call Urban Air Adventure Park, dated October 7, 2022, to be developed in accordance with the plans and exhibits presented, the project narrative, the floor plan, as well as the additional materials provided today in the supplemental submission by the petitioner, subject to the following conditions for approval. The tenant build-out plan to be reviewed by the fire department for egress requirements prior to occupancy. The permit plans for the proposed tenant build-out reviewed by Lake County for requirements including but not limited to size of the water service, grease basin, location sizing, and food service establishment. Subject further to satisfactory evidence of tenant approval of the waiver of the prohibited use for entertainment contained in the reciprocal easement and operating agreement. Also subject to final decision and approval by the village board of the building conversion certificate, and I guess more generally, as we discussed tonight, but encapsulated in condition 2, permit review by the county. Anything else?
What was number 3?
The satisfactory evidence of tenant approval of the waiver of the use provision for entertainment and recreation in the reciprocal easement and operating agreement. Did I miss anything? Did I miss anything, Andrew? Okay, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, we need a roll call, please.
Commissioner Cotton,
Yes.
Commissioner Hesner,
Yes.
Commissioner Heidner,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulcrone,
Yes.
and Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. What will occur next is that when the minutes are written up, the specific findings will be prepared that we will have to approve at our next meeting, and then provide those to the village board with our recommendation. I guess we should ask council, is that correct? Okay. And those will be provided to the petitioner and the objector as well, I assume?
Yes, we would provide it to both, and in this case, I do think, as the village attorney suggested, it would be appropriate to prepare the minutes for review first before discussing the date for this to go to the committee of the whole.
That makes sense, sure. Okay. Okay. Thank everyone for their time over the last many hours, and we appreciate that. Next, we have the approval of the November 30 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, which were part of this evening's packet. We have
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
When will this be going out before the board?
What I'm going to do is prepare this for the review. I'll let the commissioners review the draft minutes at minimum and work with the village attorney to decide if the actual formal approval of these minutes is necessary. But at minimum, I'd like to have the minutes prepared, distributed for confirmation, and then set the date. So the next possible date would be January 3rd, but the meeting after that would be the 17th.
So it'll be next year.
So the earliest would be January the 3rd?
The absolute earliest would be January the 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Should we just FOIA you for that, or to just get, or just keep monitoring the date?
You can contact the office for you if you'd like to. Either way is fine, but you
Great.
can contact myself. I would copy at least one other person just to be sure that we see it.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right, thank you. All right. So we have a motion to recommend approval of the November 30th, 2022 Plan and Zoning minutes, unless someone has any thoughts or comments on changes?
We are amending page 6. There was this incomplete
Yes.
sentence. And it should say, the attorney indicated the additional document should be, and then included in records is missing. We've added that now.
Yeah, so we'll add that. Okay. If not, we can do this by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and I do not vote since I wasn't there at that one. Okay, next we have any development review to discuss?
Just a couple of quick notes. We had, at last night's Committee of the Whole meeting, there was a discussion. A representative of Royal Birkdale proposed a change to the development permit to allow a solar roof tile that has a slate appearance. The Committee of the Whole was generally in favor of the request. Our task at this point now is to go back and research it. The Committee of the Whole requested that implications for other subdivisions that do have similar architectural standards included in their development permits, how that would be handled. Would there be a different procedure for these? Should other ones be notified before the formal adoption of a change to Royal Birkdale? So we'll be doing that research and getting back to the Committee of the Whole on that, but I thought it was worth noting for the commission. Also last night, fun inflatables within the mall. We had placed it on new business just due to the lack of available meetings at the end of the year here. So that presentation went well, and the board did ultimately approve the ordinance for that special use. We have the other items. Bell Tire had requested a delay just for their staff availability from the project team. They wanted to make sure the sign representative could attend the meeting with the Committee of the Whole. So that has not had its final review by the board at this point. And I think that's it. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any.
Did the board say anything about the flagpole?
The board hasn't seen it yet. The board has not seen it yet.
They know.
And they're aware of it.
Anything else?
They watch all the meetings.
I was trying to find out where we have the openings listed on our website. The only place I saw it was on the newsletters. Is it anywhere else in the website?
I believe it actually was on the front page. I don't know if it is still there. We do have some applicants, some interested in the slots.
Okay. And then it also, on the website, it lists the ZBA and their meeting times. Shouldn't that be removed?
That is a good suggestion. We should probably do that.
Yeah, I think that's us.
Yeah, we're meeting on Thursdays now, too.
Right, good. Okay. Anything going into Chili's?
I have not heard of anything. We get inquiries from time to time, and we let people know of the available sites. I have not heard of anything specific for Chili's yet.
Okay, right. Okay, any general public comments? I guess not. With that, we have a motion to adjourn. We need a second. We can do that by acclamation. All in favor? Aye. Maybe opposed? We're adjourned. Good night, all. Thanks, everybody.
Kevin.